Thanks for coming to hang out with us today. Ruck Up Buttercup is a podcast hosted by Deployed Love. We chat about real things that military families deal with and help you to love the call to action. So you know the drill. Ruck Up Buttercup. Ruck Up Buttercup podcast can be found on all your favorite streaming locations. As well, we are now available on Reach Across America Radio on Fridays at 11 p.m. and Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can find Reach Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app. Just search the word Reef. Can't wait to see you there. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ruck Up Buttercup. We are here with a really fun episode, but we are giving you a little bit of time to warn that you might want to put on headphones or not listen to it if you are with your kids where they are going to hear this, because we are going to be talking about sex life and how that affects our relationships.
I was going to say, and if you're a mamas, this isn't an episode for you either.
Yeah, don't listen to it if you're my mom. Yes, please don't.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No. They can listen to it. We're not going to get like super personal.
No, we also are old enough. I don't really care what my mom thinks at this point.
Yeah,
15 years of marriage, so.
That's true.
There are babies who have come from this, so there's expectations at some point. All right, so the guest we have on is one of my lifelong friends, Dolly. We were talking about it, that she's kind of like a cousin to me because I think we've known each other for close to 30 years. So she has some amazing knowledge because she's been part of kind of the sex industry for a while now. So I'll go ahead and let her kind of tell us about her.
Yeah, it's been like 30 years. It's insane. I would definitely classify you and your siblings as at least cousins, if not closer. I've been in the industry since 2014. It started out as just a side hustle endeavor because I had just had my second child and I didn't want to go back into the workforce. So started doing parties, and I was only going to do it for the few years that they were both at home, but found a complete passion within the parties. So I have a degree in psychology, which is pretty much the same thing as sex toys. But I didn't think I'd be paying off student loans with the profit from selling sex toys. That's for sure. I also have a background in the medical. And so I just found my niche. I found something that I love. I love talking about women's sexual health and relationships and empowerment. And I'm able to do that through pure romance, through the parties. So I do those parties. But the way I've built my business, I do much, much more than that. I work with OBGYNs locally to me and help them with the product that they need to point their patients towards for pelvic floor functioning and strengthening and all of that. And it's really taboo, unfortunately, still, everything that I do with my work and that I talk about with the products. And I really love being able to be that person for women so that they have the education, they get the permission that they're looking for to explore those things, whether it's by themselves or in their own relationships. And it's not icky. It's just part of life, and we might as well enjoy it. But knowing where to start, how to shop, what to get to go want, because there are things you need to go with the things you want so that the experience can be the most beneficial for you and your partner. So I've got the two kiddos. We've got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. I had my husband start over again when I met him. So I've got a bonus daughter who's in her 30s, and we have 2 grandchildren as well. So my husband is an Army vet. I got married to him after he was done serving our country. So he started all over again. And here I am. I live 3 blocks away from Sabrina's childhood home. So happy.
It's crazy that like I moved so far away, but you guys, I guess, still get to see like all the things that are happening in Dakota. I'm like, oh, I miss that town.
Yeah, it's huge now. It's blown up. It's insane.
It is. So it's been a long time getting to know you, and it's nice that I think it's cool that you kind of have a husband who's been part of the Army. You are not part of that at all, but I'm sure you still see the after effects. We talk about like the PTSD and everything else that comes with being part of the military. So you have a veteran, you're a veteran spouse, and you still get to see how the Army affects people. So
yeah, absolutely.
So we had talked about this, Ashley and I, and we were really excited about this episode. So we kind of sent you some things, and we've kind of gone over what we wanted to talk about. So we're trying to make sure that we relate it a little bit more specifically to our military community as well. So you have come up with some great stuff. So one of the first things that we kind of wanted to talk about, obviously with Deployed Love, we work with deployed families, right, all the time. And that's why we have Ruck Up Buttercup. It's not just for deployed resources, but we also deal with deployments, with trainings, with these times where we're going to be separated from our spouses. So what is some effective ways that we can kind of maintain that connection when they are away from us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the importance of communication while you're together or while you are separated location wise, the importance of communication is going to be the utmost, most important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Communication, communication essentially more so it's more important when you are separated because you're not right in front of that person, you're not connecting with them physically, you're not sitting beside them. So having that open and honest communication can really really help the intimacy flourish in that relationship, whether
Mm-hmm.
you or while they're away. And one key point that I want to this like we're going to drive this home the entire episode, but intimacy does not equal sex ever.
That's so important. Yes.
Yes, there's a very big difference. And I think it's natural and normal for us to like, fall into that. Like, that's what it means. And there are so many different ways that we need our intimate cup filled and they need their intimate cup filled that doesn't even touch on sex, right? And using technology when we're away from each other with video calls or sexting, it's a thing, right? Especially if you or your partner enjoys it, or sharing playlists with each other, because music has a way of saying things that we don't know how to say in 3 minutes or less, right? Or can bring up fond memories of things that we've gone through or places that we've been in the past. And that doesn't require a lot of time to listen to or time to have to communicate. Because even though I met my husband after he was done serving our country, I do know that your time to be able to talk to them when they're deployed or away at trainings is very limited, right? And so sometimes you only have 10 minutes to talk a week or every month even. So using those small little tools like music or texting or something like that can be really, really beneficial. And we have so much technology at the tip of our fingers now, way different than 10 years ago or 20 years ago even. So that's always helpful. And then care packages are huge, right? Not just sending them their favorite goodies like Oreos or whatever it is that they like to eat, but things that make them think of you too. So if you have a partner who really, really enjoys lingerie, sending them a piece of your lingerie, clearly, hopefully, I don't know, no judgment. Maybe they're not going to put it on themselves, right? But
You never know though with some of these
oh.
with some of these soldiers. I wouldn't put it past them.
Right? And maybe that's what they need. And you know what? No judgment, right? But sending them a little piece of you that will make them blush, that will make them think of you, that will give them that emotional rise. And it comes out of nowhere, right? They're opening a box. And if you've sent them Oreos every other package, they are going to be ecstatic that there's something else in that package for them, right? We have
Yeah, I'm going to jump in and say the funnest thing that I sent to Dustin was I went and got beautiful boudoir photos.
Same.
And it was so good for me too, because it was like this big confidence boost. And I had something that I could do that was just for me as well. And then sent him the whole book, an album of them. And he loved it. He still has that. So
Yeah, I did the same thing on Jeremy's very first deployment. No, actually, it was his second deployment. His second deployment, I sent him boudoir photos as well. And that was, he still has them. We found them the other day. And I was like, you still have all of these? Like, we printed them out. I printed them out. I didn't do a book. But it was, he's like, yes. Of course, I still have these.
Exactly. Doing a boudoir shoot, sending them the whole album or sending them just one picture in each box, like to kind of,
Build that anticipation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with the communication part. Like, it's so important. And I feel like it's just also important to have those conversations over and over and over again. Because, like, I mean, I know Sabrina and myself, we've been married for over 14, 15 years with our partners for almost 2 decades. And recently, me and my husband just reconnected and had like some really heartfelt, deep, intimate conversations about like, you know, things that we like, things that we don't like, inside and outside of the bedroom. And it has made a world of a difference.
Yeah. Well,
Like a world of a difference. Like it's completely different and it's amazing.
when you're in relationships that span decades, like you're talking about, you are a completely different person than the person they met 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yep.
You're a completely different person. And you guys are 22 chapters forward of where you were. And so those likes and dislikes, needs, wants, desires, and fantasies have also shifted. So having an
All
and it's something that I encourage you to literally write down and do individually. Have your partner do it too. And then that's a topic of conversation, especially at one of those times where you're like, okay, we're going to talk, we're going to get together, we're going on a date, whichever. And we don't want to talk about finances and we don't want to talk about kids. Well, what should we talk about? And you're like, insert cricket sound over.
wow.
That's one of the things you can do. And I will be plugging throughout our conversation products that are available through me, only because that's what I do, right? I provide a service, but I provide well. And there's one
of my favorite products is from Pure Romance. One of my all-time favorite products is from Pure Romance. And it's a product that both I love and my husband loves. And I think that's like key too, like finding things that also like, I know, I'm not sure if we have this like later on, but like that stigma of using toys is definitely something that I know a lot of military spouses have like an issue with because they don't feel like they can use it without their partner. They've never used one, which was one of my biggest things. Like, you know, I met my husband in high school. That wasn't a thing back in the day to, you know, have products like that. And so, I definitely will get there.
One of the products that we have that you could actually utilize really, really easily in care packages, or even just in letters, is something called date night cards, hot date night cards that we have. And it's a whole huge deck of cards. And go with me here. I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but there are different types of cards within this deck. So there's conversation starters, there's action cards, there's tell me what you think about this cards, that type of thing. So you can slip one of those into the care package or the letter and send it off to your partner and with the directions on it. I mean, write on it with a Sharpie. Who cares? Like next time we talk, I want to hear what you think about this and put that, you know, like write it on the card at my parties, just because inevitably not as many circles of clients of mine are all military spouses. I encourage them to leave it in their cup holder, or if they pack them a lunch for work, like put it in their lunchbox, like leaving them inconspicuously so that they find it, and having it be known that the rule is you have to text me your answer, or the next time we talk, we're going to talk about this, just to keep things fresh. And but yeah, absolutely, the stigma around toys and them being a replacement versus a tool, we'll get into that. But setting aside the time for those dates, and it's something that scheduling that intimate time, whether you're next to your spouse or connecting with them virtually, is super important. And sometimes it's the ick that comes up of like, well, and I'll just tell you guys personally and honestly, I was scheduling date nights with my husband, and I was doing it because he is a priority to me, like utmost priority. And so I was putting it into my schedule, and then I was filling in the kids stuff, and then I was filling in work stuff, right? Talk about it though. And he felt like, this is 2 or 3 months after fighting about it, pretty much, I'll be honest. He felt like I was scheduling him. Like I had to schedule time to be with him. And so he felt like I was just something else on his to-do list, on my to-do list, sorry. When I finally realized why, I was like, it's date night. Why do you have so much animosity? Why do we fight when it becomes date night? Like, we've planned this, right? Once we finally got to talk about it, that's how he felt. And he didn't realize my intention was making sure that if I don't put it on the schedule, 2 to 3 months are going to go by before we find time in our schedule to have the two of us. So once we communicated about that, then he was really excited that we were having that scheduled date night, because that time is so valuable and I didn't want anything else to touch it. So I just really encourage you to talk with your partner about that, whether you're scheduling those virtual dates or the in-person ones. And remember too that a date and time together to create that intimate space between the two of you doesn't have to be going out to dinner or spending a lot of money. It can be intentionally going on a walk together or sitting down together, whatever it looks like, because every relationship is obviously different. But yeah.
I think that's a mindset change too, though, because like for the longest time, at least for me, I don't know, I know Sabrina does a lot of walks with her spouse, but for me, like the longest time, like a date night is get out of the house, go to dinner, go do something. And it wasn't, I think, until like this upcoming year, I was like, nope, like that's great. Like going out and being able to get dressed up and all that kind of stuff is great. But like we've started doing in-home date nights. So like whether it's we're making a cocktail and sitting down and watching a movie, or we haven't done it yet, but we've talked about doing like a craft project together, which is really funny. If you know my husband, everyone's like, what? But you know, trying different things at home that we never would necessarily do has kind of like come up, and we do it like we'll do it on like a Friday night or even a Thursday night. Like if we know our weekend's really busy, we'll do a Thursday night after we put the kids to bed, and it's really helped us connect together a little bit more. And I know it's very difficult for like a lot of our military members who have long hours that, you know, sometimes you do just have to do a date night at home when you put the kids down. If you have kids, if you don't have kids, it's still a little bit different, but sometimes
you should get those cards.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of my friends voluntarily gave us those cards to borrow, and I did not know where that was going to lead. I definitely thought it was conversational, but there are action items in that that led to a very good fun night for everybody. So do know that those are fun. Those are fun to have in your house.
Yeah, we have cards too, but I'm not sure if they're from Pure Romance. I can't remember where we got them from, but they're and the ones we have are scratch off, so we have no idea what's on them at all. Like we just go through, we pick which one we want to do, and we have to scratch it off, and that's what we're doing. So it's also kind of fun because we're like, what are we gonna get tonight? Like, are we gonna get something where it's, you know, a little bit more dirty, or is it gonna be something a little bit on the, you know, cute romantic, like make dinner together type of thing.
Yeah. The other thing I would encourage too is taking turns planning the date. Because I know a lot of, for both men and women, we just want them to think of us, right? Like, yes, we want to spend the time together, but we just want the effort to go into it, because also it's not fun to get in the car. It's finally date night and you're like, well, where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. And then you spend 20 minutes just get all the technology to work for this thing today. You spend so much time trying to get to the destination that you're both irritated by the time you get there. And that's not fun either. So
have you guys heard of the ABC dates? Mm-hmm. So like you have to do an activity with A and then B and then C, but then you take turns planning it. So like the first person would have to do A and then the other one would do B. And that is the cutest thing. I want to add that to our life because that's so fun.
That sounds fun. Yeah. I'm like the worst person. I'm the worst person for that one because I'm the type of person where like I don't want the other person to just not like where we're going. So I always typically let other people, even in my friend group, like even in friend groups, I'm like, I don't care where we go. You guys pick, I will be fine no matter where we go. But I've learned as I've gotten older that like, you know, it's okay to be like, absolutely, I don't want to go here and I don't want to go here. And move on from the conversation, because it used to be that like, where do you want to go? I don't care. And then he'd pick a place where I'm like, oh, again, like we're going to this place again. And again, it comes down to communicating and you know, being honest and open with your feelings with your partner.
Well, and picking stuff, you know, when it's your turn to plan the date, planning the date around things that you know they enjoy is one option, or plan that you know you enjoy that maybe they haven't picked for you lately. Like it's okay to plan a date that you're going to enjoy, because if you're enjoying your they'll enjoy the time too. So taking those turns is always a good idea. The last thing that I would suggest putting in a care package, which here's your reminder, if you don't already have earphones in, this is the time to put earphones in. You can send them, especially if they're a male partner. We have products for men that work really well to help them relieve themselves. We've got sleeves, we've got vibration, and we also have remote control toys. Now, Pure Romance does not have an app controlled toy yet, but we do have remote control toys. So sending them just the remote so that they know what they need to have in their pocket when they come home, right? Being ready for that. It's just spicy. It's different. It's fun. And it tells them that you were thinking about them and you're ready for them to come home, right? So, all right. So let's talk about that stigma about toys that we were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Because Ashley, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
using them alone together, like, right? Is that what you were talking about?
So I think, like, for me personally growing up, like, or for me personally, like, me and my husband met in high school, and toys just weren't, something discussed in my family. Like, that wasn't something like, oh, there's these things that you can use. And then it really wasn't until we tried toys in the past, but I as someone who, I mean, I'll be honest with our listeners. My husband is my first sexual, like, full sexual partner. I was like, but I wasn't his first. So I always kind of had this, like, I'm very naive. Like, I really don't know, like, I always kind of compared myself to his first partner and things like that. And so it took me personally a really long time to come out of that. And a lot of that came down to having conversations with other military spouses about, like, he really wants to try this. I'm not sure about it. Or like, what type of toys could we use? It's actually a pure romance party I went to during his second deployment. It was funny because we were all reading 50 Shades of Grey, and then we went to a pure romance party, and we I was like, this is gonna be fun. Like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of toys, and we're gonna have these things when he gets home. And my husband's always been, like, very adventurous in his sexual life. Like, he's always like, let's try whatever you want to try type of thing. He's always been very respectful when I say, like, nope, that's not something I want to try. But anytime I've like, I've got this, let's try it. But honestly, like, it didn't come down to until I was having conversations with other military spouses. I mean, it's military spouses is just my network. So majority of the time it's military spouses I'm talking to, and opening up about, like, things that I've tried, things that I would be interested in trying, because my husband has stated that he wanted to try it, but I was just very hesitant. And then kind of talking about that and taking that hesitation away of, like, hearing other people's experiences really does open your eyes to a whole new level of pleasure that you didn't think you could come to. And so I don't know. I feel like my whole thing about this episode is to encourage our listeners to, have those discussions, whether it is with your partners, if you're not comfortable, because I was always very not comfortable talking to my husband about it. Like, I was kind of embarrassed. Like, I was embarrassed that, he had more sexual experience than me. And so you didn't want to come off being, like, dumb in the sense of, like, not knowing. And so I confided into other people. And then eventually I was just like, it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't until about 4 years ago, which is crazy because I've been married for almost 14 years, with my partner for almost 20. It wasn't about 4 years ago where I started to be like, this is really silly. Like, why am I not having these conversations? Why am I feeling so insecure? Because I know we both, like, enjoy our time together and things like that. And we had a really deep conversation about, like, about that, my insecurities, about why I felt that way. And he's just like, well, he never would, like, tell me that it was stupid that I felt that way. He's just like, no, I can understand. Like, I understand that. And, like, I'm sorry you have felt this way for 10 years at that point. And it literally took our, like, our okay sex life to above. Like, like, I look forward to our time together, where beforehand I'm like, ugh. Like, I enjoyed it, but at the same time, sometimes it felt like a chore, if that makes sense. Like, it never really fully felt like it, but there were times I'm just like, it's okay. Now it's like, introducing toys and all those different things. Like, it really has made a difference. But it's okay to not use the toys too. Like, I feel like there's so many people out there who, like, well, I don't want to use toys. That's cool. But having that communication about what you like and you don't like really does take the act into an experience.
That communication is the number one key, right? But after that, 80% of women need clitoral stimulation in order to reach an orgasm. Period. Our sex organ is mainly on the inside of our body. I usually, to my parties, I bring my clitoris. She's downstairs. I don't have her right now. Well, I have mine, but you know what I mean. So I teach parties, and this is our pure romance gang sign, because these are the labia and that's the clit, and you can't forget the clit. Like, you got to poke it through, right? But if you've never seen the anatomy of a true, like the entire clitoris, 90% of the tissue is inside of our body. And so if this is the inside, the head of it sits here, and then we have legs and bulbs. There's actually 4 little, like, they shoot out and they go around. And the tissue is erogenous, just like a penis. So with stimulation and arousal, it fills with blood and it gets larger. And because it's on the inside of our body and their penis is on the outside of their body, granted, I'm talking like male-female relationships right now, it's a lot harder to stimulate and get ready to go and be a part of all of that experience and the arousal and the desire. And there's 2 different types of arousal too. There's excited arousal, and I'm forgetting the words right now because it's too early in the morning for me. But basically, like, you have to be touched and stimulated in order to be aroused, or it all comes from your brain, right? And men and women are, and they're this way and we're this way. And so trying to meet in the middle and find that space together, toys become a tool, right? I'm not man bashing, but the average 18 to 45 minutes to reach an orgasm. Again, the real ones. If you're still having the fake ones, knock that off, because that helps no one.
Seriously.
The average.
I love that.
I'd rather leave him disappointed than fake that shit anymore. No way.
But I think that's like an important thing to say. Like, I think that's an important like note is like, if you're, especially for our younger girls, because I know I was that way. Like when I was really, really young, like, you know, I was taught that like, or my brain had it in my brain that I was, as long as he reaches like whatever he wants, like he meets climax, then I did my job type of thing. And I know that's not right. Like as I've grown older and gotten like more into myself, I'm like, oh no. But I also feel like having like, if your partner is only there to pleasure himself, I mean,
that's a whole nother,
I don't know. I feel like that's a whole nother topic, but I feel like once they come to like the realization like that, I remember seeing that shift in my husband where he was just like, or him learning. I don't know if he had his conversations with his buddies and things like that, but I remember seeing that shift going from like him just doing the bare minimum to going like, oh no, we're not going to that point until you are to the point where we're going to be good and go, that I know that you are going to climax. And I think that's really important, that not only you stop faking the orgasm, but at the same time, your partner making sure that they're not rushing and making sure that you get to that point. So again, it comes down into having that conversation about like, hey, this works for me, this doesn't work for me.
Well, and just open conversation in general, because when we take antihistamines or antidepressants or alcohol or anything like that, those affect a woman's body and woman's climaxing a lot more and a lot differently than a man, right? Like if we've been taking pills, we are dry. I mean, cotton mouth, cotton south, that stuff is dry, and spit is never lube. We'll talk about that here in a minute too. But it doesn't affect them as much, and their sex organ is on the outside of their body. And so having those conversations and telling them like, yeah, I'm ready for this too, but just so you know, I'm not sure, like we have to use lube tonight, or things like that. All the communication surrounding it is important. But back to the faking, you're not doing them any favors, you're not doing yourself any favors, and all that's doing is actually building mistrust in your relationship. But if you're not able to climax, while he might feel bad about it, right? It's not being able to figure out like, well, why wasn't I able to? Was it not long enough? Am I taking meds? Is it I've got too much on my mind? So next time when we try again, I need to relax for a little bit first. Like talking about those things makes it open communication, and you're learning together rather than let's just fake it so he'll get off me, right? Like that's never a good idea. But toys can also offer a variety of sensations that partners are just completely physically incapable of offering us, right? They can enhance the pleasure and give us new and exciting experiences. And when we're using them together, it can also just increase that intimacy level and you can explore things together. I do recommend that you explore toys by yourself first because we need to know what feels good for us. And a lot of times it can be unsexy. So we'll just call it what it is to tell them more pressure, less pressure, move it here, move it there type of thing when you're in the moment. You can guide their hand, but the talking typically happens afterwards, right? Or at a different time, not in the middle of having sex.
Mhm.
So exploring with the toys by yourself first and wrapping our own brains and having a conversation with them around the fact that these toys are a tool. Could you build a house with just a hammer? Sure. Would it take you forever? Abso-freaking-lutely, right? You need a saw, you need a drill, you need all these things. And so those are the tools that help you get the job done better and a little bit quicker or in the timeline that you're looking for, right? That's the same thing as most of the toys that we have, not necessarily the lubricants. Those are a must, which again, we'll get to that in a second. But using toys where they don't feel like they're being replaced because a lot of men I find in my line of work too, talking with the women specifically, feel like the toys are a replacement for them, especially if they're a vaginal toy. So starting with toys that are not going to be inserted vaginally, or if they are used together with their partner. My two top sellers for couples play are called Twilight Mood and Butterfly Effect. So Butterfly Effect is an insertable internal and external vibrator that is controlled by a remote. So essentially that one has become a favorite because you can wear that out on date night while you're cooking dinner, vacuuming matter. And I'll be honest, the stimulation is not strong enough to help us achieve an orgasm. But it takes to 45 minutes down to rip my clothes off and throw me on the bed. I'm ready, right? And they think
Yeah.
they're in control. They are. But
My husband, I have this one for those who are listening. I have this one, and this was one of the very first ones that we got to kind of like to use together. And he was just like we got it. He was like, okay, we're going on a date night tonight, and like you have to wear it out, and like he was just like all over that, and I was just like, okay, like that's whatever.
We have
that's
it
fine.
too.
Yeah.
They think it's like a video game. They're like, this is great. I have control of the situation.
They'll do it in like the most awkward position. Like I remember like I walked in and he had me walk in first and I was like trying to talk to the hostess and he was just like clicking away. And I'm just like, boy, if you do not stop, like, because I was more like someone's going to hear the buzzing and I'm going to have to be like, oh, it's my phone. But then it was also during a time where like phone vibrations weren't really that loud in my opinion. So like, because they were still like the flip phones and things like that, that I still had at least.
just don't sit on a metal chair.
But I was like, no. Yeah, no, not a metal chair. But like, I love how you said like, use toys beforehand. So one of the things that we started doing is my husband will actually go online and purchase the toy. So like when he's gone, he'll purchase a new toy. Like we have so many toys because of this, because we are military. So anytime he's gone for an extended period of time, he will actually send me a toy. And then we'll ask like, how do I like it when he's gone? And then as soon as he gets home, he's like, where is it at? Like we're playing with it like right now. And it's actually, like I said, like it's really like it's taking like it's added fun into our relationship where it was just like, oh yeah, no, I use it tonight, like, and he'll ask questions and things like that. But at the same time, like, or send a video or whatever. But he like it builds the anticipation like even more, like you're already kind of all both like fired up because you haven't had intercourse in a long time, but having something where he's known that I have been using has made a difference. And I think but that was a shift, like I said, like it was a big shift. Like he doesn't mind me doing things to myself as long as like I let him know that I'm doing it, like type of thing, which usually I do.
Side note on the butterfly effect, if you and some of your besties all have the same one, so if you all wear it to the same picnic, whoever's closest to the toy is who will control it, just so you know.
That's awkward.
My other best
funny,
called Twilight Mood. So that one, and I don't have any of them right here next to me, but that one looks like a spoon. So if your children find it, it's just an ice cream spoon. It's totally fine. No big deal. But it actually bends. So it can be straight or it can bend, and it can be inserted. So you're getting external stimulation at the same time as internal, and he can fit inside as well. And that one's just fun to play with, and you can use it externally on your own. And it's got a great long handle if you're using it externally. So it's perfect for the reach around, to have clitoral stimulation, because again, 80% of us need that clitoral stimulation in order to reach an orgasm. So
What color is that one?
they've changed the colors. Now it's a light blue color. It used to be purple. And before that, it was pink. That one's
I think I have that one too.
it sticks around.
I have a lot. So one of my very best friends was also a peer.
I think it's funny though that you do, because we have a lot of toys too, and I think that's a military side of things, because we are separated all the time, so it is something that we end up collecting. But it also is a funny thing because we move every 3 years, and then it's like, how do we not let the movers see our things? Like, we need to back this up separately.
I had that fear. Not that, like, as we started adding more, I was like, number one, we're having too much. Like, you know, the kids are gonna find it, or all that kind of stuff. So we actually bought this box that we can like lock. So like we have all of our toys like in this, like, it looks like a storage box, but we have a lock on it, because I was just like,
it's a go box.
What are we gonna do? Like we have one of those, like, I don't remember what it's called, but we have one of those like pillows, and every time we move, I'm like, oh, like, I'm like, you know what? At this point, I'm like, I don't even care. Like, we're married. They should know people married have sex. So, I kind of got past that after a while, but it was one of those things where, like, this thing is gigantic, and do we use it? Not all that often, because it makes it so uncomfortable. But Jerry was like, we should get this. And I was like, whatever, fine. Let's try it. But it's really hard, in my opinion. So it's really hard to move around on.
Even if the movers find it, they're adults too, so it's fine. It's not just make sure, here's a good plug too. Make sure you're storing them in storage bags. Our storage bags are made of antimicrobial material, so it protects them between uses, protects them from melting to each other, because silicone and silicone melts together, protects it from dust, mold, mildew, bacteria, all the things. And never use clean your toys except for toy cleaner, because our toy cleaner is a silicone conditioner and it kills bacteria. If you use soap on your toys, the number one ingredient in soap is alcohol, and alcohol dries our skin out, and silicone acts a lot like skin, so it's going to dry it out, and it's going to have cracks, which can breed bacteria. It can break, that type of thing. But the other thing too that's really helpful to know, and good to use with toys or just in normal, like, body to body intercourse, right? No toys included, is extra enhancement products. So when we are stressed, we're not sleeping very well, if there's a new baby, or antihistamines, antidepressants, PTSD for the soldier, like, all of those things can affect our libido. And our libido is our desire to have sex, not our ability to have sex. And if there's things that are dampening the ability, that's a whole nother realm. That's, a doctor needs to get involved. But if it's just the desire side of it, we have products that you can utilize both for men and women that bring the blood flow to the surface and create that skin excitement and help with that arousal process. So some of them are flavored, some of them are unflavored. So some of them are detectable, some of them are undetectable. So there's lots of products that can help, aid in that encouragement. And using toys too, for us, for women, men too, I mean, it feels good for them, but for women especially, our pelvic floor, and men have a pelvic floor too, but it's really, really beneficial for our muscles. So even if you're not comfortable with toys yet and using them on your own, if your partner is deployed or gone, I recommend at least starting with a Kegel exercise program, because your pelvic floor is a whole bunch of glorious muscle and tissue, right? But it feels good. So if you're going to go to the gym, this is the easiest way to think about it. If you're going to go to the gym because you want to build your biceps, you're not going to stand there like this, just like moving your hand. You're going to put a dumbbell in it and you're going to do some curls. And then the next day you're going to do your triceps or your legs and glutes, right? Like, you're going to change it up, and you're going to take a rest day. You have to do all these different things and move it around a little bit. So our pelvic floor and all of those glorious muscles are the same thing. So they need that extra stimulation in order to stay toned and to be strong. So using toys actually benefits our physical health, not just our mental health, because people who have orgasms don't go crazy as often. But it's very, very helpful for the actual muscles in our body too. And strengthening those pelvic floor muscles by using toys or a Kegel program helps with urinary incontinence, bladder control, all of those things. And as horrible as it sounds, the average age right now for a woman in the US that needs a pelvic floor mesh put in or intervention of some kind is 42. And I'm sorry, but that is ungodly young. Like, that is scary. I am not very many years away from that. And I will do all of the product testing and or self orgasms I need to keep everything strong, right? We need all the insides inside. So using toys can really help benefit that. And then the last thing that I keep saying we're going to talk about is the lube, right? Spit is never lube. This is not sexy, and it's not, no, not a good idea. But our bodies need that lubrication. And again, back to the antihistamines, antidepressants, alcohol, stress, all of those things can affect our lubrication level. And it's not a matter of, he's not turning you on, so you're not able to provide that lubrication. Your body's not making it properly. There are so many different aspects wrapped into that. So my number one go-to recommendation is our Just Like Me. It's named that because it mimics your natural moisture. It's water-based, it's pH. I actually encourage my clients to use it daily. You wash your face and you moisturize it. What are you doing for your vulva and your labia and your vagina, right? Just because it's skin, we don't walk around with, fake eyelashes on it with our pants undone, doesn't mean that it doesn't need its own moisturizer. So use it on a daily basis, but certainly it's a great start for a personal lubricant as well. If you are on the drier side, we have thicker ones, and that's where you get me when you shop with me. Like, you can ask me these questions and I can help you make sure that you have what you need. We have a lubricant that is designed especially for men because they don't need a water-based one because everything goes on the outside of their body. They need an emollient one, so we have a lotion-based one. For women, we have stronger ones, especially if you've gone through chemotherapy or menopause or are just shortly into the 4th trimester. I just had a baby. There's one that you need that's a little bit stronger. And we just launched a brand new lubricant that's called Conceptria that is FDA approved for contraception. So it just creates the perfect little environment if you are trying to get pregnant. So there's so many.
And I think lube is another one of those that has a weird stigma. I think it's more on the male side than the female side, though, like where the men think if they have to use it, they're doing something wrong and then they don't want to use it. I remember at least when we were younger, he was like, nah, we don't need that. It'll be fine. Like it was he should be doing something better. Otherwise he's not doing it right. And I am one of those that I have stress and I am so mental. Like everything is mentally there. And I'm like, and if I'm not mentally there, I'm not going to allow you to without it because it hurts and I don't want to hurt myself. And as an adult now in my 30s, I'm like, no, I get to choose how my body is used. And if it's not, you're not going to use it right, we're not playing this game. So lube is one that you just need the communication again. Like go back to talking about like what the benefits of this and that it's not like against them.
It all goes back to communication and really educating them too, right? Like, I absolutely believe that women have way more conversations around sex and intimacy with each other than men do, right? So educating
100%.
Yeah. Educating them on what we've learned. And actually the vaginal cavity too, side note, the vaginal cavity, when we get aroused, actually it like grows up. So it's called the vaginal tenting process. So the cervix raises up and it almost doubles the length of our vaginal cavity when we are fully aroused. And a lot of women that are wet on their own or are able to provide that lubrication when they are aroused from their partner, it's actually just the first third of the vaginal cavity that's lubricated. It's not deep up inside. And we have way more nerve endings at the beginning of our vaginal cavity, closer to the outside, than we do higher up inside. And so using a lubricant is super, super important because while it's uncomfortable if you're not wet enough, right? And you feel that, you might not feel it as much up inside. And our vaginal cavity is like the inside, like the tissue is like the inside of our cheek. So it's really soft and supple. And if there's any sort of friction, number one, it doesn't feel good. And number two, it's actually creating little micro tears. So like a fishnet, they're called fissure tears. And those fishnet holes, essentially, that are tearing, then they close with scar tissue, and then you do it again and again. And it's like a cat, like scratching the inside of our vaginal cavity. So you want to talk about longevity of that tissue. You want to make sure you're using a lubricant every time, even if you feel like you have enough moisture, because you don't want to damage that tissue, whether you can feel it or not. So using that lubricant not only feels better, but it protects our body right now. And it's going to protect our body 15 years from now, because I'm going to be one of those grandmas in the nursing home. All of it's, I promise myself, right? And using things like toys and wearing the lingerie and doing the boudoir shoots, and hell, just set your phone up and do some sexy selfies. Like, yes, treat yourself every now and then to a boudoir shoot, but just taking those sexy selfies and sharing them with your partner, or just doing them for yourself. I don't know about you guys, but I feel 10 times sexier when I'm going grocery shopping if my legs are shaved and I'm wearing matching bra and panties, even if I still have my high school sweatpants on. Like, we just feel better when we take care of ourselves. And so little things like that can just really increase our own confidence and our intimacy with ourselves. Because if you can't figure out how to be intimate with yourself, it's going to be really, really hard to reconnect with your partner as well. So wearing the lingerie, using our amazing shaving cream, taking a bath if you're on the mental side, like Sabrina was talking about, like if you have to get out of your head before anything can happen, what works for you? Like, what helps you calm down, right? Okay. So going back to what Sabrina was saying, like she, mentally needs to prepare herself sometimes because she's got a lot going on in her head, and you are not alone. A lot of women are like that. So finding things that can help you de-stress before that intimate time with your partner, like taking a bath, or, if it's wearing lingerie, whatever works for you. Like, we are all different, and sometimes we need different things. So we have products that can help with that too. We have an entire bath line. We have the best shaving cream you will find anywhere. But that's, again, where you get me to help you shop. So you get the shaving cream, you get the aftershave, you get the body oil. So you're covered in pheromones, which is like happy juice. And our shower gel bubble bath. There we go. That's a tongue twister. Is pH balanced. So you can utilize it every day if you wanted to, and you're not going to get a yeast infection. So we have the fun products, but they're also smart and good for our bodies too. So.
Yeah, I know that the stress is like, and I feel bad because when we were younger, it was like we were very like impromptu, right? And our sexual actions would come out of nowhere. And so now it's like, hey, I don't mind like having sex and not getting an orgasm. That's okay sometimes too, where I'm like, hey, I'm stressed, but it's fine. I can still have sex with you. That's fine. But just don't expect it to be what you want from me on my end. Like, I don't mind still doing it. That's fine. I'm still going to enjoy the process, and I'm still going to enjoy the intimacy of it. Like, but also sometimes just having that expectation with your spouse and the communication of like, hey, tonight, if you want to roll over and that's what's happening, like, just know that I'm not going to even attempt to get there, because I just know mentally I am still thinking about XYZ throughout the day. So like, that's where that like scheduling intimacy is a lot more important, because sometimes you need to know when that's coming.
Well, and like I said,
I used to get
does not equal sex, and sex does not equal orgasm, right? If our goal of sex is an orgasm, you've missed the boat, right? Like, that is cherry on top. And it's great if you achieve it, help your partner achieve it, or achieve it multiple times, but it's okay if you don't get all the way there, because it's enjoying the time together and the experience that you're walking through versus orgasm, right? Like, that's not the So I'm glad that you can differentiate that, because a lot of women can't. And if that's you and you're listening, here's your permission. It doesn't have to equal an orgasm. But if you can have multiple, high five, sister.
Definitely still try. I mean, if you think you can get there and you're getting close, then that's also communicating like, hey, actually, I'm starting to like, can we slow down and we'll be ready for this? Then that's great too. So.
Yeah, well, and it all comes down to that communication before and communication during, and finding how that communication can be, comfortable. Because, like, earlier we said, like, go this way, go that way. That's not sexy, but like, having like, keywords, if it's something that if you are almost there, being like, slow down, go faster, however it may be. I think that we talked about it. Key is that communication. And if you are having a rough day, and explaining why, because I know my husband specifically, he's like, well, you work from home, so like, how stressful is your day? Okay, well, I work from home. I'm the main parent for 2 kids. I do this. I, pay all the bills. I do all the grocery shopping. I do all the cooking. I do all, all these things. Like, sometimes at the end of the day, I'm tired. I was gone all weekend working over the weekend, and I came home to because in my brain I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to come home, and I'm gonna have 2 days to clean because my mother-in-law's coming to town to watch the kids, and I know I have to do all this cleaning. That man deep clean. When I mean clean, he deep clean. Like, he waxed the floors.
Yes.
Right.
He cleaned. The only thing that I still have to do is laundry, and he refused. Like, and it's whatever it is. Like, he refuses to do my laundry, and that's fine. Like, he'll wash it, but he won't fold it, put it away, things like that. That's fine. So I just have to do the laundry, but everything else was complete. And I was like, I'm exhausted, but you know what, sir?
That is a turn up.
I'm okay. Like, let's go. That I was like, well, because I walked in, I was like, oh, like, he cleaned the kitchen, things like that. And then I went upstairs, at one point, like, I saw that he had like cleaned the counter in the bathroom, but like, he cleaned the tub, he cleaned the toilets. And now, granted, like, my husband does help clean, but a lot of times, like, he's still like, he's that personality where like, he just doesn't necessarily do it. I just have to ask him. And for the longest time, that was one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, I was like, I hate having to, like, you're part of this family and things like that. Like, you see there's dishes, you see me losing my shit. Like, you should go and like help out. And we're just very different personalities. But I came home and Claire was like, I cleaned this and Daddy did this. And I was like, yeah, this is nice. Like, that isn't like, if I can come home and everything is taken care of, you're cooking dinner, you're putting the kids to bed, you will get laid every single time.
And
every single time. Every time.
Tell him that, he's going to do it way more often. It comes back to that communication, like we keep saying, but he's really fulfilling that acts of service for you. And that's one of the love languages, right? And so tapping languages is also key, especially in a longer relationship, because just like we talked about, you are not the same person as you were 14 years ago, and neither is he. Your love languages have also shifted. And
I was going to say mine have changed. Mine are no longer what they were when we first got together.
They shift constantly. And one other part of love languages that even people who know what they are don't necessarily know is sometimes we like being loved in a certain love language, and sometimes we choose to love others in a certain one too. And while that might not be something like, say, for example, yours, I don't know what they actually are, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, your number one love language is acts of service, and maybe his is physical touch. That doesn't mean that every time you serve his love language, it has to be physical touch, right? Like, we all have like percentages of all of them, but they're shifting all the time. So I highly recommend checking back in with your partner. Make it your next date night to do the love language test, which is free online. You can find it somewhere. But checking back in with yourself and your partner and figuring out kind of where you guys are again, because those shifts do happen pretty naturally. So
yeah, that communication is really important. And that kind of brings us to like our last topic of what we were going to bring up was reintegration, because as a military spouse, after they've been gone for a year, it is like starting over dating. It is like that very weird, like, hey, you're here, but I don't know if I want you to touch me right now. Like, I barely feel like I know you. Especially, I remember our first deployment when it was a year. It was like, we had barely had a year together married and like having sexual interactions. And then you've been gone for a whole nother year. And it's like, oh, now I've got a new boyfriend. Like, I have to start over this whole process of getting used to each other.
And it's definitely something we see it like, why is he not wanting to be intimate with me? Why, we had sex when he first got home, but then it's been like weeks, since then. And I think it's important to, number one, you're like, we just talk about like us moms are tired. So the same thing is they go through a lot of experiences that they're just kind of unwinding. And I guarantee you that a lot of them aren't even thinking that, or they're just also mentally, they're just like, that's not something I need right now. I went a whole year without it.
Yeah. Well, I think
I might not need it anymore.
it's like everything. It comes back to communication, right? Like, just because he is the one that left and served and then came back doesn't mean that he is the only one reintegrating, right? You're both, he's reintegrating
Mm-hmm.
the home life and civilian and all of that, but you're like having him back in the home again, and you're sharing those parental and house duties and stuff like that. Like, there's lots of changes for everyone when they come home, and while it's a good thing that they're home and they're back with us, there's lots of things that um that you're going through. And I think that setting realistic expectations on both sides so that he feels supported and that you feel supported are going to be
Mm-hmm.
super important. And the importance of having patience with each other and understanding whether you're, talking about the reintegration into just the normal family lifestyle, let alone the intimate side of things, and rebuilding that intimacy, because it's really, really important that you're rebuilding the physical intimacy, but also the emotional intimacy. And if you didn't take the steps while they were gone to do the sexting and the boudoir shoot and care packages and stuff like that, you're not starting over, but you're starting from scratch when they walk back,
Mm-hmm.
right, in those doors. But if you've been doing those things and you've stayed connected and the communication has been there while they've been gone, it's going to make that process of reintegration a lot easier, as long as you've got that open communication, because you need
Yeah, that's a very
those
good point,
honest.
though, because like I was just talking about that year-long deployment, but that was in 2009, when we talked to each other once a week. Like, so
Yeah.
there was not an
Yeah.
opportunity to have intimacy in
There's
the way that we have it now. So like
Yeah.
we can't sext over email when it's open to who knows who sees this information kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, and then like they also like, back in the day, like, nowadays, like they get to have their personal computers and all that kind of stuff. Back in the day, like they had to go to this like room filled with a bunch of like 20 other people. And like there was like you couldn't do those things like if you were it was Skyping then. Like now I think Zoom's kind of taken over that like thing, but or Facebook, whatever, but it's very different nowadays. And so I do feel like most women or most spouses, at least nowadays, have a better opportunity to do these things to keep your relationship
Yeah.
intimate and spicy while they're away. Sometimes there is not that opportunity. Like, some of these rapid deployments, they don't have their personal devices, so they're still having to use that, but there are still going to be opportunities that you can do that. Especially if it's like a scheduled long deployment and they have those things at their disposal.
Well, and whether they have it or whether they don't, like knowing and communicating with your partner that there's going to need to be a different style of communication when they do come back, right? Like, we need to talk about what we missed, what we're looking forward to, our needs, our desires, like how everything shifts when times change, right? All of those things
Mm-hmm.
super important, because again, they're not the same person and neither are you, but that doesn't mean that you can't find what the new you guys,
Mm-hmm.
new us looks like. It's something that takes that communication full circle every time. It's that communication, right? And the permission to seek support from community works like you guys have, with the deployed love and the wives and things like that, and seeking that advice from them, and or the permission to seek professional advice, because if you feel like you need that support instead from an organized support group or from a therapist or a counselor themselves, that's okay too. It's just making sure that you're being honest with yourself and honest with your partner, and having those conversations, and being able to make that reintegration for them and for you and for anyone else involved in your family unit, if you will, important, because it's also important that they get to spend time with the kids when they get back too, right? Like, it there's a lot of moving parts. So giving yourself grace, giving your partner grace, communication is key. And it's just the little things, reminding them when they grab your hand, when they're back from deployment and they're holding your hand walking down the street, saying, I really missed this, right? Of course they missed it too, but saying those things,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's something as small as that, is going to make a big difference.
I know personally for us, like I don't ever look forward to our time apart but we take advantage of that opportunity. Every single time he goes, we're both very passionate. I'm more passionate. He's more stoic, but like, when we do have our intense not arguments, but just conversations, we typically like to do it where we're not face to face, because not all the time, but when we're wanting to be a little bit more intimate, we're both face readers, and we can get emotional pretty quickly based off of just like, if we don't feel the other person is vibing with what we're saying. So we take the opportunity during times to have some deeper conversations. So, and we're separated. Like, we have that space where, like, if we start to get upset, we're not turning it into an argument. It's a very healthy conversation and things like that. And so when he's gone, we do take advantage of that. Like, if there's something like, that's been bothering me for a long time, I take the opportunity to be like, hey, like, this is bothering me. Can we, when you come home, can we start doing it this way? Or can we, take this opportunity to say, hey, his last time away, I was like, I really want us to start doing date nights. They don't have to be date nights out, but they need to be date nights, where we set a time at least twice a month where we are doing something where we are connecting emotionally, whether we're playing or physically, where we're playing games together, but we're doing something intentional. We're doing something together. We're not just sitting on our phones. This is what we're doing. We're connecting and doing this whole thing. Cause like, we got to a point for several years where it was just like, we're just going with the flow. Like, there wasn't a lot of, we were still having intercourse, things like that, but it wasn't a lot of emotional connection.
Yeah.
And it was tough, and it can be tough.
Yeah.
So having those opportunities to have that. And if you're a person like myself who does not like confrontation, being able to kind of, I hate that I'm saying this, like, hide behind the screen to have that encouragement to like say what you need. Hey, that's okay. Going to a therapist, whether you need or going through couples therapy, like we were just saying, by yourself or with couples. A lot of people feel like you only go to couple therapy when you're at that, like, that's the last chance to make things better. And that's not the case. Like, going to couple therapy can help you find new ways to communicate that you just maybe have not thought of. And
It's putting
and that's okay. Like,
that their profession is to help you communicate better. So nothing has to be wrong in order for you to seek counseling or therapy. It is a tool to help you grow your relationship. It is, and like you said, it shouldn't always just be this is the last, like, Hail Mary. If this doesn't work, we're getting a divorce. That is not the only time you should seek out counseling, right? And I agree. Like, being able to not necessarily hide behind the screen, but I understand what you mean, and or setting time aside when you're outside of the home to have those deeper, more heated arguments, but going to dinner, going to a public place, or
yeah.
going.
So you're like, oh, I can't like go get mad at. That's the, like, we do that too. So like, when we go to dinner, we take the opportunity to do that, because like, at least I know I can be like, okay, Ashley, like I have to give myself a minute to think, was that look towards me, or was that just a look he did? Like, and it gives me pause where, like, if we were sitting in our living room, I'd just be like, why are you looking at me like I'm stupid? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on here and have some girl talk with you. I'll make sure that I create a discount code for you guys and for your listeners too. That way, if there's any we talked about
exciting
service to and send you, I'd love to do that. And just remember that you get me when you shop with me, not just amazing products, but you guys get all of my expertise and suggestions if you need them as well. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's nice to catch up because, like, as a military, we are never living in the same place as our friends or family or anybody. So it's nice to have the chance to just have some friends on here. Ashley and I both love to pick our guests from our friend group because it's nice to just be like, hey, even though it's for the podcast, we still get to sit and chat for an hour, which is really, really nice to catch up. So thank you for spending your early morning with us on here.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this. We'll make sure we have all of Dolly's information and any of the products and stuff that we've been talking about linked in the show notes, as well as any other resources that we may have mentioned. So make sure you guys are checking that. We have lots of information in there all the time. But thank you guys for joining us today. And as we like to say, Ruck Up Buttercup.